Hi everyone, I'm Zach Reinhardt, here to review the new Tricot album, 3. Tricot is a candy-coated pop math rock band, and this is, as you might guess from the title, their third full-length album. I've never really been a fan of Tricot's work in the past, though I do think they have a good song every now and then. I've generally found them to be far too clean and poppy, especially in the production. For me to really get behind them, it takes a little bit of the soul out of the music for me. And I actually tried reviewing this album on the week of release, several weeks ago, but I couldn't get through it. I found the song to be so impenetrably boring that I stopped listening to it after just a few songs and took 2 weeks off reviewing. And I thought that was it. I thought I'd put the album in my big stack of albums over there and be done with it. But this week came around and there were just no new releases that I was really into that I wanted to review, which is rare. Usually there's a few things that I could potentially review each week, but this week I didn't really have anything, and I just kind of was sitting down thinking, what am I going to review? What am I going to review? And this Tricot album was just staring at me from the darkest depths of my memories. And I was like, all right, I got to do it. So I sat down and I gave it another review. I tried to completely from scratch review it over again. And this time I found the willpower within me to make it to the end, though I don't think I've reached much of a different conclusion. I hate this album, is what I'm trying to say. I think it's a bad album, and I never want to hear it again. But I'm going to try to describe to you why I think that, I guess. So, starting off, we have the track Tokyo Vampire Hotel. This is actually a decent start to the album. It's very energetic. It starts off immediately with some fast, aggressive drumming and some punky guitar work. And though it is still very poppy, still super clean, and I think a little too clean, especially on the drums. Overall, I think the song is pretty solid, even if it is a little dime a dozen for a Tricot track. Track 2, however, is an incredibly forgettable song. So forgettable, in fact, that I've actually forgotten it. Whoops, on to track 3, Yosoiki. This is a funk track, a disco track, combined with a little bit of post-punky, math-rocky stuff. I don't know, it's bad, though. I don't know what they were thinking making this track. It's trying to be kind of funky and kind of groovy, but also still have the same feel as like their math rock groove tracks. It's really confused, and it doesn't know what it wants to be, I think. It gets kind of punkier on the chorus, but then the verses are more funky, more disco-esque, and the song is just a clusterfuck. And then we get to the track Day to Day, track 4, which kind of represents the whole album for me. It's split between this dichotomy of these kind of cool riffs and some nice grooves and like a really cool outro, and this super poppy, incredibly just forgettable chorus. And I think it really represents the dichotomy of feelings that I have for this album, where there's always something a little interesting, there's always some redeeming factor, even in the songs I hate, where there's like a cool guitar line or there's some cool like rhythmic syncopation between different parts. But it always returns to this super poppy, sterile, just way too cleanly produced mush of kind of pop rock that I hate. I just hate. The next track, Tsukima, is an upswing, however. It's one of the better tracks on the whole album. It's got just a bit more of a jam focus, which really carries it through. It has these odd kind of off-kilter guitar stabs and these strange bass chords at the beginning that turn into an actually pretty nice groove. This is probably the first song on the album where there's a vocal melody that I can really get behind and really enjoy. And there's some guitar noodling in the background that's really nice, and it turns into this guitar solo, which comes back as this big jam that carries out the song to the end. It's just a bit less complex. It's a bit more of a simple track, and I think they executed it fairly well, even if it does suffer from some of the same production issues that the rest of the album does. And then I pass out. I realize that in all the aggression and excitement at the beginning of this album, I had in fact been injected with some sort of musical sedative, which is just now taking effect as track 6, Pork Side, begins. As the emotionless, reverby guitars swirl around me, I find myself swimming in my thoughts, and 20 minutes of my life quickly evaporate, never to be seen again. And I wake up confused at the beginning of the second to last track, Setsuyakuka. Setsuyakuka is the best track on the album by far. It originally came out on their Kabuku EP, which I discussed in an EP wrap-up last year, and I quite liked the song then, and I quite like the song still now. I think it's one of the more visceral tracks that Tricot has ever put out. It's upbeat, it's punky, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and man, the chorus on this thing is great. A really exhilarating chorus. The verse is solid as well, and there's a really great bridge on here, kind of breakdown that takes place that sounds really nice as well. This song is just solid from front to back in pretty much all aspects, with the exception of it still suffers from some of those production issues that I've been complaining about for a few minutes now. And on the last track, Melon Soda, it sounds like, for at least a moment, that some of the simplistic joy of Setsuyakuka is going to carry over as we get some nice grooves and a genuinely catchy, poppy, fun vocal melody on the verse here. But sadly, it devolves into the same kind of overly produced, overly written pop mush that the rest of the album has been putting forward. And while that verse is definitely a highlight at the beginning, the rest of the song is entirely uninteresting, and it ends the album suitably with disappointment. So, having delved into the darkest depths of this album and come out with some semblance of sanity, I have two main complaints. 1. The production is far too clean. It takes all of the soul out of the album. There's no connection with the artist that I feel. This is studio music at its purest, most sterile. And I find it quite boring as a result. And 2, it just overstays its welcome. There's just not enough interesting stuff going on here to last 45 minutes. Maybe if this was a 25, 30-minute album and they trimmed some of the fat, I'd be looking on it a bit more favorably. But there's like a 15, 20-minute section of just nothing happening, of just basically the same song over and over again. And Tricot is really doing nothing new with any of their style on here. But on the bright side, none of these tracks are completely without anything to note. There's always some redeeming quality in the tracks, even if it is just a little cool guitar line that you hear or something. There's always like a nice groove or a nice vocal melody, but the problem is it's not consistent and cohesive across the album or even just across a song. A song will have one cool part and then the rest of it will just be boring. I'm feeling a 4 out of 10 on this album. I just can't get into it at all. There's nothing here for me to really dig into and connect with on any level, not even a cerebral level, just because I don't care enough about the album to put forward the effort of really dissecting what's going on here musically and like theory-wise and rhythmically and harmonically. Music like this just makes me want to turn it off and go listen to something else. I really have a lot of trouble making it through this whole album. It is a slog. I don't want to spend any more time talking about this album. So yeah, that's me. This is the new Tricot album. It's called 3. I don't like it at all. And I am in fact going to be on my deathbed looking back at this time in my life, questioning why I didn't more fervently pursue happiness. But I'll see you guys next week. Peace.